I'm Green Smoothie Mom, and I would like to show you some of the great things that you can do with the leftover pulp from when you make almond milk. So what I do is after I squeeze out the almond milk and I have all this pulp left over, I just gather it in bags and then I put it in the freezer, and then next time I make almond milk I'll pull this same bag out and I'll just add new pulp to it. And after I get several of these bags, enough to fill my dehydrator, then I start to dry it. So I have an Excalibur dehydrator, and you don't need an Excalibur dehydrator. You can use any kind of dehydrator for making almond flour, which is the first thing that I'm going to show you how to make with the leftover almond pulp. So I have my tray, and then I have the screen that goes on top, and that's pretty standard for all dehydrators, that it'll come with the tray and the screen. What you will need to get to make the almond flour are these Teflon sheets, and they are sold for many dehydrator models. And so I'm just going to lay that Teflon sheet on top, and then I'm going to put a bunch of almond flour, not almond flour, almond pulp. I'm making almond flour. Almond pulp onto the Teflon sheet that's on top of the screen and the tray, and I'm just going to spread it out. And it doesn't have to be pretty, and it doesn't have to be all even, although you don't want to have a big pile one place and nothing another place. Be efficient in spreading it out over. So when I've got it about to this kind of a thickness, it's about 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick, and that's pretty thick. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in the dehydrator for 24 hours, and then in 24 hours I'm going to pull it out and I'm going to break it up after it's become more powdery and fine and it doesn't have this moisture in it. So I'm going to put this tray in the dehydrator with the rest of them, and I'm going to start it. I put it on a low temperature, the lowest temperature that I can. I'm going to turn this on to 112. I'm going to put it on that low temperature because I don't want to cook out any of the goodness that's in it. I want to keep it as raw as possible. And so for 24 hours at 112 is what I'm going to put it in. See what your dehydrator will do, and just put it at the lowest temperature that you can, and then be the judge of how long you need to leave it in. So we'll see you in 24 hours to continue making the almond flour. So after you've let it dehydrate for 24 hours, you're going to pull it out and you're going to see it's just kind of chunky, and you can kind of pick it up off the Teflon. And so what you're going to do is you're just going to go through, and with your hands you're just going to break up all these little balls of almond pulp that's almost dry. There's just going to be a little bit of moisture left in the middle. You may not even be able to feel it, but you definitely want to break up all these little chunks so that you have a nice fine flour. Okay, so now that I've taken out most of the big chunks, the only thing that's left is just this small stuff. I'm going to re-spread it out fine on the Teflon sheet, and I'm going to put it back in the dehydrator at the same low temperature for about another 8 to 10 hours. And when we're done with that, we're going to be almost finished with making our own homemade, nutritious and delicious almond flour. So I've had this almond flour in the dehydrator for another 24 hours after I broke up the chunks. And you can see there's still a few little chunks, but this is very nice and dry and ready for the final step of making almond flour. So I'm just going to pick up this Teflon sheet, I'm going to gather the flour into the middle of it, and I'm just going to put it into my very dry blender. And I'm just going to blend it for a couple of seconds on a very low setting to just break up any of those final lumps. And so once it's become a fine grain flour, this process is finished. So what can you use almond flour for? There's quite a few things. The thing I like to do the most with it is substitute part of a regular wheat flour with half of it being almond flour. So if I'm making cookies or a dense bread, whole wheat bread, or a denser cake like a carrot cake or a spice cake, even pancakes and waffles, I'll substitute half of the wheat flour with this almond flour. Be aware that when you use it, it will increase the denseness of your product, which is why I wouldn't use it in a fully white bread or a dinner roll or something like that. You can also make dessert crusts. I've used it for pie crusts. I've used it half and half of the graham cracker style crust. So there's a lot of different things you can do with it, and I'll be sharing some recipes later on with some natural raw desserts where you will use this. So after it's all turned into flour, I'm just going to put it into a freezer bag. And I'm going to store this in my freezer. And I want to store it in my freezer because there still is a high fat content from the almonds. And so if I store it in the freezer, it will increase the shelf life of it. And it will last for up to a year. I've actually used it for longer than that, but the really nice quality is about a year time on this. So I hope that you'll try making some almond flour, and I'll show you some other things that you can do with the leftover almond pulp.